Fáilte McCardy Galair. Goji on Laurelin Shaw is Misha Anton. My name is Anthony Murphy. I'm your host for the next hour and a half of Live Irish Myths. This is episode number 233. Today is the 10th of July. It's Monday, the 10th of July. On Tuesday, the 10th of July, 2018, at 8:47 p.m. in the evening, life was about to change in a very, very major way for me and for my companion and good friend, Ken Williams. We will hear more about that shortly, as if you haven't heard enough about it over the past 5 years. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. If you're watching on YouTube, the usual reminder, hit that like button. Definitely subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so that you can get notifications of future live streams and video uploads. If you're watching, regardless of whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube, please do feel free to join in the conversation. We say hello to everybody, as I will do now. There will be some announcements, and then we'll get, into the subject at hand. A little bit windy because I've just had my dinner. Elaine Dent Lingenfelter's first in the house, and yet again, she's boasting about how hot it is in Texas. No, that's not right. It couldn't possibly be 77 Celsius. I think you mean 37, but that's hot. But it feels like 44. Oh, yeah. I hope you have the fan on. That's all I can say. Elaine, good to see you. T says, hi, Anthony, from Tony. Well, hello, T. Tony, T for Tony, laughy face. Here's a quick cuppa, T. And I think Tony has my sense of humor, as well as sharing a shortened version of my name. Rex Fortenberry's in the house, ready to get my Irish on. Wow, I like it. Spike Willow is here. Hey, Anthony and Tribe. Hope you're all grand. Doing okay, doing fine. Bear with me, and that is Colleen and Kevin are watching. Hello there. Long time no see. Saw them in the flesh 2 days ago here in Drogheda, where we shared a lovely tour of the mythological murals. Elaine has corrected her previous. Yes, I see 37. Yes, and a tour of the mythological murals in Drogheda on what was a beautiful day. It's a good job I'm not looking for crop marks this summer, because we've had a lot of heavy rain. Half an hour ago, the heavens opened and the whole place is soaking wet. So a bit different to 2018. Oh, look, I'm just going to let that sunbeam just float in there. Look, yes, there, Anthony, there it is. Look, see the sunbeam? Just for added effect. Things were a lot different in 2018. It hadn't rained in the Bóinne Valley since probably late April, I think. Anna Liffey, Giaglitch, I'm here at the moment on my travels in Mali Losing Island, Croatia. Oh, wow. Toga Bugay. Well, good evening to you, Anna Liffey. Hope you're enjoying Croatia. T is advising people to smash the like. Thank you, T. Lily Shamble says, hi, T. Hi, T. I see what's going on there. Yes. And T says, up awfully. Well, I'm not inclined to argue, except for I'm in loud, so up loud. There you go. And Lily is saying hello to all. Ali Gisel is saying hello from the oven known as Tucson, Arizona. I would trade a bit of that, but I wouldn't want it quite to be an oven on this side. And Scott Doherty's in the house. Can't wait to get an update on Dronehenge. I'm not sure there will be a huge update. Bear with us. Hello, Anne, and welcome. Sandra Boothroyd is in the house. Another exciting night. Woo! If you're excited, I'm excited. That's the way I see it. Another fine Mythical Ireland Monday, says Michael Pike. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon to you. Anna L. is saying good evening to Anthony and the mighty Tua. The Mughti Tua. It's a bit muggy this evening, all right. Never mind. That's terrible. Helen Hirsch Chatter is saying hello from South Dakota. Very good afternoon to you, Helen. Welcome to Live Irish Myths. Susan Scott is saying hello to Anthony and all the lovely Tua across the miles. I have a doctor's appointment today, so I'll be watching later. But as always, it's great to be here sooner or later. Well, we're saying hello anyway, Susan, and enjoy the doctor's appointment. not sure that's the sort of thing you generally enjoy. Good luck with that, and we'll see you on the replay. Astro say, good Lord, has it been 5 years? I know, right? I know. Absolutely ridiculous how time is flying. Wayne Bird is in the house. Hello, Anthony. Hope everyone is well. Good evening to you, Wayne. All good on this side. Kathleen Gallagher is excited to be here, sending love hearts to everybody. Alwyn Roy Badzak's in the house. Good evening, Anthony Unto. Well, a very good evening to you, Lady Alwyn. Valerie Gallagher has joined us. Rainstorms clearing away here in Rhode Island, just in time. Same here. We had the most ridiculously heavy rainstorm half an hour ago, and now the sun's out, shining in. Look at those magic sunbeams. Look at that. Oh, isn't that just... And you can actually see some coloration there. It's like the windows acting as a prism. Nice. Fergal Canton is in Kilkenny. Up the cats, except the Morrigan ones. What have you got against the Morrigan's cats, Fergal Canton? up the cats. Yeah, up loud. I have to say that first and foremost. Everyone else is secondary. Anne McCallum's in the house. Hello, Anton on the Mighty 2. I hope everyone's doing well. Sorry, can't stay for the whole episode today, but we'll catch up later. Car is being readied for the drive to the Catskill Mountains in New York on Friday. Been going for many years to enjoy the amazing annual Catskills Irish Arts Week. Brilliant stuff. We'll enjoy that, Anne. Hope you enjoyed that immensely, actually. And yeah, no problem. We'll catch you on the replay, as they say. Irish technical thinker, Conas Atatu, Tomé Goma, August Tu Fain, Marcus, Emil Farishta, Archaeolinguistic Adventures were. It's cut off. Hi from Pennsylvania. Always nice to hear Anthony's Mythical Ireland. Well, good afternoon to you, whose name I'm not sure of, and apologies for... Sun's getting stronger. See that? Look. I don't want to cut it off altogether, but maybe it's high time my feckin' ugly face was blocked anyway. There you go. Good afternoon to you. Charlie Grover is in the house. Hello, Charlie. Welcome to Live Irish Myth. Shay Cunningham is saying up loud from West Cork. That's a very unusual, combination. Up loud from West Cork. West Cork, beautiful part of the world. How's Drombeg Stone Circle these days? How's Clonakilty? Daisy Peters is in the house. It's a pleasure chatting with you all. Always our pleasure, Daisy. Great to see you, and good afternoon to you. Tom King has joined us on Goa. Good evening, Anthony Mighty too, and the Mighty. Stop reading too fast, Anthony. Hope all in good fettle. It's story time at the Forge, and I'm looking forward. Enjoy all. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Paul Campbell is joining us from Galway City on the Atlantic west coast of Ireland. Good evening to you, Paul. Hope it's not too soft a day there. Joe Krause is saying hello. Hello, right back at you, Joe. Welcome. Adina Sparks is in the house. Hope all are staying 96 Fahrenheit here. Oh, my God. It's not nearly that warm here, to be honest. But sure, look, we're nearly glad, it's not too hot. Hi, Anthony Mighty Tua from a rainy Boston, says Janet Moore. Hello, Janet. And that sounds very Irish indeed. A Celtic Neurodivergent is saying hi from Mayo. Well, good afternoon to good evening to all our fans and friends and followers in Mayo. Brilliant. Who else have we got? Eamon McDonough, who is in Chicago. Good afternoon to sunny Chicago from the sunny Bóinne Valley, where the light is streaming in, the midsummer light, streaming directly in onto the camera. Coda says hello. And Linguistic Adventures with Nolan. Brilliant stuff. Hello, Nolan. Good afternoon. Anya Ryan is in the house. Hello, Anya. One of the participants who enjoyed the recent Myth and Metal at Tom King's Forge. Another one coming up. Get your tickets before they sell out. Johnny Wilson is in Dallas, Texas, where I gather it's very hot. 37 Celsius. Feels like 44. Wow. Lexi Erickson didn't want to miss this, and we're under another severe thunderstorm watch. I'm tired of these. Yeah, we've had a lot of thunderstorms over the past couple of weeks. It seems to be just weird weather. And speaking of Lexi, and there's Barbara. Hello all. Too hot to admit the temperature. Highs 106 to 109 for the next 10 days. I'd rather be in Ireland. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can understand that. I really can. That is hot. Well, take it easy, Barbara. Plenty of cool water. Keep the fans running. Keep the air conditioning on. Adrian O'Beglin is in the house. Good evening, Fulcher Roth. Adrian. I've been to Bóinne in Cork. Absolutely beautiful place. Me too. Last November, actually. A very nicely done memorial there. David Powderly is in Ardbracken. Hello, David. Not too far from our good friend Tom King in the Forge of the Smooth Road at Bohermeen. Janet Moran says, Fionn says hi to Coda. I think somebody was at the door. Speaking of which, I had the pleasure of a surprise visit from my good friend Richard Moore this evening. Haven't seen Richard. Well, I saw him on Saturday, but we haven't actually had a good conversation in ages. And boy, did we have a good conversation. Catherine Woodruff is in hot Wisconsin, 90 Fahrenheit. Oh my God. There's a competition going on here for the High Temperatures Award. Ali says it's been 110 here for most of the last 2 weeks. It's the big heat before the monsoon season. We don't ever get anything like that. Kibble Henge is saying good evening. Well, Kibble Henge. We're talking about Dronehenge this evening. So we've got the word henge in common, certainly. J.M.C.H. Smith is saying greetings, Fáilte, Sláinte. Archaeoastronomy database is in the house. Hi, friends. Well, hello to you also. Michael Collins, RIP, says Marcus. Yep. He's been dead a while now, hasn't he? But that is a beautiful memorial. And Archaeoastronomy database also watching on YouTube, just in case he misses something on Facebook. David Powderly must call in to Tom for a mug of tea. Mug of tea and a conversation. Mickey Ansbury's in the house. Hi to it. Well, good evening, good afternoon, good evening to you. How are we doing for time? We're good, we're good. Okay, some announcements before we get kicked off. Dennis Dwyer is in the house. Hello, Dennis. Good evening to you. Hope you are keeping well. I know you're down the country somewhere, but I can't remember where exactly. Everybody is shouting up. Insert county here. So I'm saying up loud. Woohoo! First Leinster final since what? 2010, was it? Now, we were demolished by the Dubs, but come on, give us a chance. A previous special guest on the No Name Trivia Show, Anthony Murphy from Ireland, will be a special guest again on Monday, the 14th of August, according to the host, Joseph McGrail Baitup in Canberra, Australia. Yes, indeed. I have it in my calendar. I have been asked to go back on the wonderfully fun No Name Trivia Show. Yes, I have to make sure I get that right. Shasta Bize is in California. I wonder, are you named after Mount Shasta? What a lovely name. Good afternoon to you. Just about 13 minutes past midday here, 13 minutes past 8 p.m. in the evening here. Just to say that today saw the release of a podcast interview that I took part in with A Life in Dublin. Now, I know you're going to say, what's it got to do with Dublin? And it hasn't got much, except for Dublin takes its name from a Bóinne Valley myth. That much is true. I'm not joking. The Mata, the great monster that was killed at Newgrange, its ribcage floated out from the Bóinne down along the Irish Sea and into the River Liffey, forming the ford of the hurdles, Clea, which is where Dublin gets its Irish name from. No kidding. I'm quite warm. I have a fan going here, but it's pointing in the wrong direction. I'm going to move it so that it's pointing in the right direction. Please bear with me for one moment. It's a tower fan, so you could say it's my biggest fan. And moving swiftly on. So, A Life in Dublin podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. It's on Spotify. That's where I listen to it. It's on Google Podcasts. It's on Apple Podcasts and in other places. So if you just Google A Life in Dublin podcast, Dublin. I'll tell you what, I'll throw in the Apple link. I know a lot of people are fond of Apple. I use Windows PC and I use Android phone. So it's not that I'm not a fan of Apple, just haven't been able to afford one. So you'll see it there if you want to have a listen. Mariana Dunn is in the house. Mariana, should I say? Apologies. Mariana, good to see you again. And this time you're on the other side of the ocean. I was going to say of the camera, but actually of the ocean. Get it? Fan. Yeah. I did mention already Myth and Metal. We had a sold out event last time. Tom King and I hosted over 30 people to the Forge, where we had a day hearing the ancient tales of the myths and the monuments and seeing Tom in action at the forge, visiting the auxiliary workhouse, the famine workhouse, and there was tea and buns in the morning, there was dinner in the middle of the day, and there was a few tunes from Tom before people left. A wonderful day. So just to say, there are lots of tickets available for the next one, which is on Sunday. 2 weeks. Today is what, 10th? Yesterday was the 9th. Yes, so it was yesterday, 2 weeks. Next Sunday week, the 23rd of July, at the Forge of the Smooth Road, which is in Bohermeen, near Navan in County Meath. And the directions for that are the best way to get to it is the air code, which is on the website. But I'll just share that for those of you who don't know where it is. If you put that into Google Maps, not sure about Apple Maps, but if you put that C15D7W2, that will take you to the Forge for the event. Anyway, get your tickets now before they sell out. Don't be complaining afterwards. Kelly Me Kelly's in the house from the Pacific Northwest. What's the weather like there? Everyone else in the States seems to be hot. I'm talking about the weather. You're all hot. Every one of you. I know. You're hot. But you're also hot as in temperature hot. Apologies. This is embarrassing. One moment. That's done. Now, what else? Yes, the Newgrange Farm Archaeological Park tours, which includes a visit to the Chamber of Newgrange, are selling extremely well. The next one, which is on the 18th of July, which is tomorrow week, Tuesday of next week, is pretty much sold out. There's one ticket left. There are two more tours in August. There's one on the 1st of August, which is a Tuesday, and the 15th of August, which is also a Tuesday. And when I last checked, there were 7 tickets available for the 1st of August and only 3 for the 15th of August. If you're planning to come on that tour, please book it now, because the tickets will be gone in no time. Okay, and the link for booking of tickets is not to the Mythical Ireland website. It's a third-party website that Newgrange Farm uses for all its bookings, which is yourdaysout.com, and I'll give you the very specific link there so that you can book your tickets. Actually, July the 18th, next week's tour is now fully booked. Towering Inferno, starring hot Anthony Murphy as the fire chief. Desiree Riley's in the house. Good evening, Desiree. I'm not sure if you were here a few minutes ago. Did you hear Coda barking and barking? Oh, the Gaelic chat, the Croke Park Men's Senior Gaelic Football Championship semi-finals, Dublin versus Monaghan and Kerry versus Derry. Paul is giving us the details there. And I'm sure if you're a GAA fan, you already know that, especially if you follow Derry and Kerry and Dublin and Monaghan. But in case you don't, there you go. Pause the video when you're watching it back and scribble down the details so that you don't miss it. What else? Yes, I'm very, very pleased to announce. So you know that very recently I departed my, not just my job, my day job and my career, not just my day job, but my career in newspaper journalism, which I have been, I said 29 years, but I miscalculated. Myself and my wife Anne were chatting about it here over the weekend, and we are sure that I was already working full-time when I met her in 1994. So that means I would have been working full-time the previous year, which was 1993, which means it's actually 30 years. And the reason I've left my career of 30 years is to focus fully on Mythical Ireland. One of the things that had happened over recent time was that I wasn't getting time to write. I was working very hard, working long hours, working 9 to 5, except for working 9 to 9 or 9 to midnight. Not able to get the time and energy to write books. And so one of the wonderful upshots of having departed that career is I have begun work finally, after much research and dilly-dallying. Not sure if that term is used outside Ireland. Does anybody in the States or Canada know what dilly-dallying means? I am pleased to announce that the third in the Mythical Ireland monograph series is on its way. This is the second. This is Bóinne, goddess of the River Bóinne in the Milky Way. And this is the first, which is Finn and the Salmon of Knowledge, Mythology, Toponymy, and Cosmology. The third has begun work progressing today at a nice rate. I don't have a strict deadline for its publication, but I would hope that at the very latest, the new monograph will be published by Lunasa, which would be around the 7th or 8th of August. In fact, if I check my Mythical Ireland calendar, which is on the wall here, I can tell you now that, yep, Lunasa this year is on the 7th of August. So that's the aim. So that's less than a month. No pre-ordering available just yet, and there's a very good reason for that, because I won't have print quotes until I know exactly how big it's going to be, and then what price it's going to cost to get printed, and of course what weight it will be in terms of calculating postage. If you are a Mythical Ireland patron, and many of you are, thank you very much. And remember that the link to become a patron is there. That is one of the ways you can help support Mythical Ireland as I take it on full time, and give it my full undivided attention, as I've been threatening to do for years, and as all my friends and family have been saying I should. Well, now it's happening. So work has begun. I have a draft cover done, which I'm going to share with Mythical Ireland patrons at the Bronze Age level and above as soon as this live stream is finished this evening. So at about 9:30 Irish time, there or thereabouts, as soon as I click end stream and say goodbye and togabuge and all of that, I'll be going over to Patreon, patreon.com/Mythical Ireland, where I will share the new cover for Mythical Ireland patrons. Really excited about the subject matter, because the subject of the book is the Fornox megalithic passage tomb, and there is no book that has ever been written just about Fornox. If you want to know about Fornox, you can acquire a rare copy of the 1957 excavation report, and there was a follow-up paper as well later about Fornox 2 and 3, but this is the main one, published in 1957 by the excavator, by the archaeologist P.J. Hartnett. So that is a detailed study of the excavations and the monument, etc., and its megalithic art and its layout and design and what stones it's made of and all of that. But outside of that, there is no book about Fornox, and I am right now rectifying that deficiency by writing what I believe will be the first book about Fornox. And that sort of follows, or is, I hope, starting a pattern, because there was, until this publication of this monograph, there was no book that was singularly about Bóinne, the goddess. The first book, and if you read the footnotes and the bibliography of the Bóinne monograph, you will get a sense of just how much material you would need to trawl through to get her story. And I've brought it all into one place. The first two monographs in the series, of course, can be obtained from the Mythical Ireland website. That's mythicalireland.com, and just go into the shop and books. And actually, I'll just copy and paste that in as a link there. So the Fornox book will examine the archaeology and the excavation. It will examine the mythology. There's not much mythology about Fornox, but it is interesting because we did reveal before about the connection with this place called Lochar Alva in the mythology, and also the possible astronomical alignment. So I hope that some of you, yes, well, there's Lexi Erickson is saying, yeah, a Fornox book, woohoo! And apparently several people claiming to be experts in dilly-dallying. Such a bold and wonderful step. Audentis fortuna juvat. Is that juvat, which is Latin for good fortune to you, or something similar to that? Thank you, Valerie. Congrats, Anthony, for finishing the tome. No, it's not finished. It's a work in progress. But now that I have more time for writing, oh man, it's amazing. I'm actually able to sit down and write this Fornox book that I've been planning to write for the past year. And it feels good. I got a lot of work done today, but it's going to take a couple of weeks to get it written. And then, of course, it needs to be proofread. There's design, there's photography, there's getting print quotes, there's getting it printed, there's getting the barcode and the ISBN number for it and all the rest. Lots of dilly-dallying and procrastination. Lots of people putting their hands up to being dilly-dalliers. Congratulations on doing what you love. Also, hi, everybody. Hello, Eva. That's Eva Barnett. Hello, Eva. Good evening to you. Me and Amadeus tuned in just in time to hear Coda right before you fixed your fan. My biggest fan. Some would say my only fan. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Deborah Gilbert is watching from Connecticut. Good afternoon. Would love to go on a tour, but too far for right now. Hopefully soon. Yes, I'm hoping to fix that. We're going to organize some direct flights from the east coast of cities of the States, to which all the West Coasters and those living in the middle of the States are going, why just the East Coast? Direct flights from New York and, places like Florida and Texas, Dallas especially, and Pacific Northwest, California, Oregon, etc., to Newgrange Farm. Oh, hang on. We can't build a runway at Newgrange Farm because there's sensitive archaeology there. Anyway, forget I said that. How do you deal with not getting burnt out, Anthony, or helping to keep your vigor? Believe it or not, I do suffer from periods of burnout and exhaustion where I'm pretty useless for a couple of days, and then I just need to rest and sleep. And that was especially becoming the case as my daytime job got busier and busier over time, and Mythical Ireland got busier and busier. And it was okay during the pandemic, especially in 2020, because I had previously been commuting to work, and now I was working from home. I seemed to have energy, but just lately I haven't had time or energy for writing, so that's a big part of the reason for retiring, as Janet Moran puts it. First thing this morning, out of the bed as normal, washed and shaved and dressed and breakfasted, and at the desk at the normal time, but this time for Mythical Ireland and for writing that Fornox book, which is coming. Anyway, I'm dilly-dallying here now, seriously. Anyway, as I say, please consider supporting Mythical Ireland and helping this dream become a reality. And there's the link, patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. Now, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and that's very gratefully received. The real value is to be had. The $5 a month is really the minimum. You'll see what you get for your patronage. But the $10 a month one is really where, if you really want the good stuff, that's where to start. And I'm very grateful that I have a number of Iron Age and early medieval patrons, and some silver patrons as well. So thank you all for your support. But anyway, that's part of what's helping to make this happen. Without that, this wouldn't be happening. Without that, I'd still be working full time, and I'd have very little time to do the writing and the other stuff. Oh, speaking of which, if you happen to be a patron at the $5 a month level, which is the Stone Age, isn't it? Imagine I can't always remember my own patronage levels. I think Stone Age is $5 a month. If you're at that level or above, Bronze Age, which is a tenner a month, Iron Age, which is $25 a month, early medieval, which is $35 a month, or silver, which is $50. There is a gold for $100 a month. I don't have any patrons at the gold level yet. But if you're at that $5 a month level, you should have access to the latest Mythical Ireland podcast. So up until a year or two ago, I did a series of podcasts. I stopped doing them again, being busy with other things. I'm going back to doing those now. So that's another thing that's going to be patron first as we go forward. A lot of things will be, and as they have been, patron first. So podcast 15, and all these will eventually be released to the public, but patrons get first listen. That's podcast 15, which is called Myths Retold, or Myths Reawakened, a rumination on the value of retelling our ancient stories. That's all the announcements. I hope everybody's got their mug of tea filled up, or your dram, your whiskey, or whatever you're having. Maybe you're having a pint of Guinness. Any advice for breakfast. This is going to sound really boring and make me sound like a complete dull, nerdy type, but I have porridge every day. Porridge. Yeah. We need books, Barbara, says Lexi. And I should add that if you order the monographs or any of my books from the Mythical Ireland website, of course, I send you a signed copy. Okay. I love porridge, says Marcus. Well, so does the Dagda, apparently. I'm taking after that great leader of the Tuatha De Danann who built Newgrange. And the only reason he could build Newgrange was because he had a good diet consisting of porridge into which he liked to put the flesh and bones of animals. So 16 minutes. This time it's 31 minutes past 8 in the evening. It's the 10th of July 2023. Exactly this time 5 years ago, I was at Bóinne. I was parked at the side of the road overlooking Newgrange Farm, not far from the Newgrange Monument. My drone was in the air. I had gone there with the purpose of seeing if there were any crop marks visible, not with any expectation of finding anything that wasn't known about, because Bóinne being the extensively studied landscape that it is, I didn't think there would be anything. I was flying to have a look at the known monuments, in particular to look at Site P, which is an embanked enclosure, an embanked henge near the river. Action porridge, says Peter Woods, who's joined us from Monaster Boys. Good evening to you, Peter. Action porridge, yes. Spike Willow is looking for images of the Sheila na Gig. Jack Roberts has published a lot of work about the Sheila na Gigs, and as far as I know, he would be the best source, the most comprehensive source for images, you know. What drone did you use discovering Dronehenge? And have you updated? Yes, I have updated. I have the drone, actually. I might show it. I have shown it before, but I can show it again. Yeah, I was flying around and there were crop marks visible, and Site P looked extraordinary. It looked very, very different to how I'd ever seen it previously. I'm going to probably, during the course of this live stream, flash up a few images. If you give me a moment, I will find, I suppose I should have done this before now. But anyway, it is what it is. Site P. Yeah, let me just show you these images now for a moment. Site P. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great fun. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that. Yeah, it's like it is. Look, it has been. Let me call a spade here. It was the most wonderful moment. It was quite incredible. It was something that I wouldn't have expected in a million years, or in my wildest dreams, as they say. It was an honor and a pleasure, and just an amazing experience to be part of. If you bear with me one moment, I'm just organizing myself here. Open with. Now, let me just see if I can do this. Yeah, so I'm going to show you an image. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to show you an image of what Site P looks like on a normal. This was taken in March of 2017. I'm just going to share it now. Give me one moment. Here we go. So that image was taken in March of 2017, and you can see here the embanked henge of Site P, ingloriously titled by archaeologists of old. And you can see, I hope, this semicircular annex or addition to it on its eastern side. So that's what the embanked henges of Bóinne and the Bóinne region look like. Henges that are built by scarping up material. I think the theory is from the inside of the henge to create a uniform bank, a fairly uniform bank with an inner ditch. Now, the inner ditch isn't that obvious in this image. Now, that field is under constant pasture. It hasn't been tilled in a long time, but you may see that the monument itself was flattened out over time by tillage activity going back a long time ago. Anyway, I'm going to show you what Site P looked like on the evening of the 10th of July, 2018, exactly 5 years ago. So we're coming up. This is 2036. So I was flying around Site P taking these images at exactly this time 5 years ago. Now, let me share that one. Apologies, I have to go through several clicks to get this to share. There's 5 or 6 clicks that have to be done to get it to share. It's a little bit annoying. Anyway, that is what Site P looked like exactly this time 5 years ago. And you can see it's very, very parched and scorched. And remember, crop marks show up in crops. To see the equivalent in grass means that the grass is extremely parched. You will notice, I hope, the dark band on the inside of what is obviously a stony earthen bank, because you get I think positive is the dark and negative is the white. Is that right? I never know which way around they are, positive and negative crop marks. The dark crop marks represent ditches or previously dug out features. The bright crop marks generally indicate where the crops or the grass, the roots of them are struggling to reach moisture, primarily because they're growing over stones. So look at that. What a difference. So I was flying around Site P, taking various images of it, and taking images of other parts of the immediate Bóinne landscape as much as I could. There's another view of it there from the west, looking towards the east. And so this was all before the big discovery. And truth be told, there's a curious story about that, which I recalled in my Dronehenge book, and which is also a feature of the talk that I gave at Megalithomania. You can get that talk on YouTube, and several other talks that I've given about the discovery, that sometime after making an orbit or a circle around Site P and taking these images, the drone battery was fading in power, and the drone started beeping, wishing for me to land it. And of course, I landed it and was thinking, well, job done. I've got my pictures of Site P and it looks spectacular. But something made me fly again, and I can't explain it. But anyway, I did. Anyway, here's an image taken one of the images taken during the first flight. Again, 6 clicks before I can actually show it to you. So this image shows Site A, which is a mound enclosed by a henge, which is very similar to Site P, and it's got the annex on the eastern end. And you can probably see in the distance that the other fields here are parched. That's mound A1 there in the distance. And what I didn't see at the time were large circles down in this area, which Ken Williams later imaged. And I think at least one of those was a new discovery, one of the riverside henges. You'll notice this linear feature, which they reckon is some sort of an old roadway. And this linear feature, at the time, I did not know that wasn't an old field boundary. This one here, an old field boundary. I thought this was an old field boundary and ignored it. Didn't know that actually it would turn out to be quite an exciting discovery. And here in the northeastern corner of this field, a circular parch mark, a bright parch mark indicating possibly the presence of a denuded or partly destroyed cairn or passage tomb beneath the soil. Now, some of this is necessarily speculative. The truth is that we will not know the true nature and age of a lot of these features until such point that there is excavation But I suppose, I'm not quite sure about that one, but I think in the case of Dronehenge and others, I think you could nearly put your house on it that they are what the archaeologists say they are, or speculate that they are. So the drone, I'll take out the drone for a moment. It's been in retirement now for a number of years. I haven't flown it in several years. Today, I fly a drone called the DJI Mini 2, which is great because it's a really small drone and it does everything I need it to do. And I can fly it in urban areas, which you couldn't do with the larger drones. Hang on now, I'll just get the drone. So I think it was Rex Fortenberry who asked. The drone that discovered Dronehenge under my guidance is the DJI Phantom 3 Advanced. One of the bigger whitish ones. And there she is. The drone that found Dronehenge. Retired, as I said, these days. Actually, amazingly, even though they haven't been charged in probably 3 years, that battery is still showing half to three-quarter charge. And so the battery slots in at the back here like this. And they're big, heavy beasts, you know. Battery slots in like that. You take the gimbal guard off. The gimbal guard is a piece of plastic that protects the gimbal when it's not in use to make sure that it doesn't suffer accidental damage. And I always did find this a little bit finicky to remove, actually. Remember that. So you have to slide it out in a particular way, and then you can see the camera is hanging loose. And once the battery powers up, then the gimbal comes into action and the camera is always straight and level. And the other thing that you had to do every time, which I don't have to do with the Mini 2, is attach the 4 propellers. And so they're color-coded. They're color-coded, so you have to make sure they're on the right way. So if you look at the motor tops where they screw on, this one's black, this one's silver, this one's black, this one's silver, right? And so you'll notice with the propellers that in the center, 2 of the hubs are black, and in the center of those 2, the center hubs are silver. And so they're just to guide you to put them on the right way. Some of them screw on clockwise and some of them screw on anti-clockwise. So you screw it on like that and then tighten it up. Just hand tighten it usually. There is a spanner that you can use to help tighten them up. I actually never used that. I always hand tightened them. And there's the second one, and just again a little hand tighten. So I had to do this before any flight began. I had to actually set up the drone. Now the black ones go on anti-clockwise, the opposite way, and there's a little guide and an arrow showing you which direction to spin them on the propellers. These are carbon fiber propellers, I believe. And then to get her to start up, will we see if she still starts up after a few years, will we? Let's see. So you press the battery button twice. Watch this. And you hear this? Should go do-do-do. I wouldn't be at all surprised if after 3 years it didn't actually work. Hey, there's life in the old girl yet. But and now the battery is showing low because it hasn't been charged. So there you go. There is the drone that discovered Dronehenge. So at this time, exactly this time, 5 years ago, I had landed and was kind of thinking, well, job done. But something made me put another battery in and send her up again. I sent it up into the air again. I took a picture of Newgrange, which I'll show you. Screen. Here we go. Give me 1 6 clicks again. And you can see that Newgrange is quite parched, and you can see the grass is very dry here. You can see the remnants of the early Bronze Age pit circle that was excavated by David Sweetman in the 1980s. You can also see, if you look closely, what look like drainage pipes, or, there were drainage pipes to take water away from Newgrange that were installed at the time of the excavations and conservation works at Newgrange. And then I flew back down to Site P, thinking, sure, look, I'll get another couple of pictures of Site P. And on my way, as the drone flew off in the direction of Site P, I noticed something in the field beyond that, the field to the west of Site P, that caught my immediate attention. I saw a circle. And knowing the landscape fairly well, and the archaeological maps, we're coming up on it now. It's 2046, so in a minute's time, it was when I snapped this next image that I'm going to show you. Yeah, so I saw this and I just said immediately, wow, there is a big circle in that field. What the hell is that? And flew towards it. And this, I believe, is, yes, you'll see that the file name of this image is Dronehenge Discovery Shot 10-7-18. Sorry to the Americans. I know you would say 7-10-18 for the 10th of July 2018. So that's the discovery image. And the funny thing is, Dronehenge actually appears in some of the earlier images I had taken. But you see, you have to understand, when you're flying the drone, this is the controller. That's the discovery image there. This is the controller. And you've got a smartphone, basically, cradled in the cradle. And you're looking at a smartphone screen, which is reasonably small. So detail like that isn't always immediately obvious. Here I am flying the drone. It's 2047 exactly now, by the way. Exactly 5 years to the minute that this discovery image was taken. And as I flew towards it, I began to see detail that wasn't immediately obvious. But as I said, Dronehenge was visible in some of the previous images. And I hadn't seen it because it was in the upper corner. And as I say, I'm looking at a small screen on the drone. I'm looking at the smartphone, basically, which is positioned on the cradle. And remember, it's a sunny evening, so any glare at all makes it even more difficult. Now, a lot of drone pilots at the time who were using Phantoms would use Apple mini iPads, and they were bigger, so you could resolve or at least see more detail. Anyway, as I flew closer to the circular feature, I noticed some detail in it, and then began to fly around it. And I think at that point, I've written all this and I've said it before, but within about 30 seconds, I think I knew I had a henge, because there was nothing else of that size that it could be. Now, of course, all of this comes with a caveat, and the caveat is this. Here's one of the images. One of 3 images that were shared on social media and which were shared with media and were seen around the world. I would safely say by millions of people, possibly tens of millions of people, possibly hundreds of millions of people, but definitely millions of people. And I began to see the double dashed features and then the rings or the circles of dots around the outside. And I just said, see, the first thought when I saw it was, that looks like a tractor had driven around in a field, revving up, leaving tire marks. But then I could see, no, there is actually a crop in the field. So this isn't the muck, this isn't the soil that these marks are in. It's actually in a crop. So I knew it was a crop mark. And shouted out. Ken came rushing over. And when he came over to me, the 2 controllers, because they're radio controllers, interfered with each other, blocking the signal so that we couldn't actually see anything for a moment or so. And he asked me what I had seen, and I told him a giant circular impression in the field west of Site P. And he separated again from me, and after a minute or two, I regained control of the drone, and he sent his drone down. And at that point, I think the two of us knew that this was a previously unrecorded monument of enormous scale, and that it was likely to be a henge. But as I say, this comes with a caveat. The caveat is this: we don't know for definite that it's a henge. We won't know that, I suppose, until we actually excavate even part of it and find datable material. But I think most archaeologists would, well, first of all, it's an educated guess. It's educated speculation. But I think most archaeologists would look at that and say, yeah, I'd nearly put my house on that. That's a late Neolithic henge. And so it's another 6 clicks, and hopefully there's an image of Dronehenge in the foreground and Site P behind it. And it turns out one of the things that you may have noticed, and that was certainly picked up on by the archaeologist Steve Davis, Dr. Steve Davis of University College Dublin, who was one of the ones who had one of the people who takes at least some credit for its discovery, because he had encouraged me that day or the previous day. He had encouraged me to fly around Site P to have a look at Site P, because he knew that it would show impressive features that hadn't been seen before. Steve co-authored a paper with Knut Rassmann on, well, it's called Beyond Newgrange, Bóinne in the later Neolithic, and using a combination of LiDAR imagery, satellite imagery, drone imagery, and everything available, basically. Steve made a comparison of the henge monuments of Bóinne and found something very interesting, that they share similarities in size and layout. I'm just going to show you an image here. Pardon me. Again, 6 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Share. Show on stream. 6. So this is a combination of 4 images from Steve's paper, as I say, co-authored with Knut Rassmann. And so in the upper left we have Dronehenge, and immediately to its right Site P. So you'll notice straight away that they're similar in size. They both have the annex on the east, and you may even notice that it appears that there are 2 entrances, or entrance/exits to the monument, one approximately west and approximately east. That's a little bit north of west, and that's a little bit south of east. And then beneath Dronehenge you have Site A, which is a mound with a henge around it. And again, the henge is pretty much identical in size, and you have the annex on that side. And finally, on the bottom right is the great Dronehenge, Site Q, on the lands at Dowth Hall. And you'll see that here what Steve has done is overlaid using different colours the size and design of the other 3 henges, and they're all pretty close. The only difference with Site Q at Dowth is that it doesn't appear to have an annex. It's like the annex is an additional feature of it. It's a bit more egg-shaped than the others. Fascinating comparison, though, you know. And yeah. So I just want to address here a comment very quickly. Tipperary Truther, I found a calendar that lines up perfectly. Yeah, I saw your email about that. Sorry I didn't get back to you today. That is based on the work of Charles Scribner and Gillies McBain. Those maps that you had were drawn by Gillies McBain. And that work was previously mentioned in my book, Island of the Setting Sun. I am very familiar with it, having been involved in the discussion of it over several years. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. But I do indeed know about it. So lots of interesting comparisons to be made. So here's another image from Steve and Knut's paper showing Dronehenge and Site P side by side. And of course, the single biggest difference between them is we have Dronehenge, which seems to have been an impermanent structure. These are probably ditch features, segmented ditch features, and these were probably wooden timber posts around it. It left no permanent mark on the landscape, whereas Site P was a distinctly earthen and stone embanked henge, which did leave a permanent mark on the landscape. So I asked the question, and it's only a question, and I don't know the answer. Is one a prototype for the other? Who knows? And you'll also have noticed on the western side of the Dronehenge field what looks like another henge with a single broken foss around it. And indeed, that is the one that had been identified by Dr. Steve Davis and his colleagues in the Instar Bóinne Valley Landscapes report, which had been published in 2010, actually. That monument had been identified previously and called or referred to as LP2, which means low profile site 2. So if you want to read more of the, well, if you want to read in general about the thing, first of all, there's the Mythical Ireland website. There's lots, if you actually, because in the early days it wasn't, we hadn't adopted the name Dronehenge. In the immediate aftermath, I just called it the New Henge of Newgrange. So there's plenty of articles on the Mythical Ireland website about it, first of all, to say that. I'll share a couple of those links if you haven't read those before. So there's one that was published on the 14th of July, which was the Saturday after the discovery, which is on a Tuesday. Just posting that in there. That was the first time I'd had a chance to collect my thoughts and to write it all down. The media took a huge interest in it. There were media interviews all day, every day for 3 weeks after the discovery. It was a very hectic time. And then later that year, at the end of the year, I wrote an article recalling the discovery, which is called The New Henge of Newgrange, the Moment of Discovery Recalled. The name Dronehenge, I believe, was first published in a headline used by Der Spiegel, the German newspaper / news website. That was the first time we'd seen Dronehenge, and that's the name that it. Thanks, Daisy. That's the name that, and Mark Gordon has joined us as well. Good evening to you, Mark. That's the name that it stuck to it, as it were. Now, so after the excitement of the media coverage died down, I think probably one of the big things about Dronehenge that made it such an exciting discovery was the fact that there was photography there to show people the enormity of the monument. I think if the media had picked it up, but there wasn't imagery, it wouldn't have had the impact that it had. National Monument Service flew a helicopter over the whole complex on the Friday of that week, which ironically was Friday the 13th. They captured a lot of high resolution images. Our drones captured 12 megapixel images. They used a camera which I think had a 36 megapixel sensor on it. And the results of their survey, it was an interim report that was published on winter solstice of that year, can be read here. I'm just pasting the link in here as a comment. And again, that's on the Mythical Ireland website. And you'll see that they picked up on several of the things that myself and Ken had found, and I suppose put more meat on the bones in relation to what they might be. So one of the things that we found that we were initially very interested in, but didn't really know what it was, apologies, stop sharing. Bear with me for a moment while I find one of the features. I'm after coming out of the folder that all the images are in. Bear with me one moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not adjust your sets. Do not adjust your TV screens. I'm trying to find it. I am, honestly. And I will, before too long, I hope. Yeah, so it's this one. Give me one moment. Open with photos. Share screen. Click. 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 Well, Ken had imaged on the evening of the 10th of July this monument was previously recorded as a ring ditch. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't no ring ditch. This is what we call a four-poster. And again, you'd bet your house on it that it's a late Neolithic grooved ware monument containing 4 large posts in the middle, surrounded by 2 circles of posts, and with some sort of an entrance avenue leading up to it. It turned out to be the largest 4-poster monument ever discovered on the island of Ireland. There isn't a bigger one. And you may, the eagle-eyed among you may notice that there's what looks like a further, well, there may be a bank there because there's a bright mark, but then there's some dark marking as well. So there may be posts and a bank there surrounding it. An absolutely huge monument. But you may also have been drawn to these wide arcs, which turn out to be not lines, but actually lines that are made up of individual dots or what look like post holes. And this is the feature that became known as the Great Palisade. A feature which is basically like a giant fence. And it's a triple, and in some cases, a quadruple fence. So this one actually has 2 rows of pits. This one, and there's a sort of extra, what they call, I don't know what they call it, not florets, petals. So in places, it's actually 4 fences. It's amazing. And remember that these are all holes that were dug in the soil, probably in the late Neolithic, most likely not using metal tools, using things like cow scapula shovels, cow shoulder blades, and antler picks. Oh, what a job it must have been. Now, I need to find one more image to show you just the extent of this Great Palisade. The National Monument Service gave labels or names to all the monuments. They called Dronehenge the geometric henge. They called LP2 the univalent henge. And they called, I should bring up their report as well, shouldn't I? I wouldn't mind I had it open, but pardon me. They called, well, I think they called the 4-poster the 4-poster. They were the ones who gave the name to this extensive monument or feature running across the middle terrace of Bóinne. They were the ones who coined this name, the Great Palisade. So I'm just going to show you here an image. So they were, as I say, putting the meat on the bones of our discoveries. Let me show you this. 6 clicks again. Connor is saying, God bless and good evening from Derry. Good evening to you, Connor. Welcome. So there's an image from the National Monument Service interim report. So you can see these arcs. There's the 4-poster. We're looking at it now from the opposite direction from the west. There's the 4-poster with its avenues leading off roughly towards the east, not exactly due east. And you'll see the arcs, but these continue through the next field and indeed through the next field and even into a little bit into the following field. This is a feature. I'll scroll down to the next page here to show you this. This is a feature which actually extended across the landscape a distance of about 900 meters, just shy of a kilometer. It's amazing to think that this was such an enormous feature. And what it seems to have done remember, a lot of this comes with caveats. A lot of this is speculative. But then a lot of it's based on visual evidence. What it seems to do is separate areas of the landscape. South or below that fence, south of or below the Great Palisade, are clustered, this great cluster of henges, including the riverside henges, as I said, one of those discovered by Ken Williams, the Site A henge, which had previously been recorded, the Site P henge, which had previously been recorded, the LP2 henge, which had previously been recorded, and one here, there seems to be evidence of what the National Monuments called a hidden henge, a henge which was either destroyed and partly obliterated, or which had never been completed, that seems to fit in between Dronehenge and LP2. It seems obvious that this Great Palisade divided the upper part of the landscape from the lower part. And in the upper landscape, you have the 4-poster, which archaeologists speculate was a site for excarnation, defleshing the human bodies, the corpses after they had died. They put them on open-air platforms to decay. There's a pill-shaped or Frankfurter-shaped feature behind the Great Palisade in the Site A field, which they reckon is a mortuary enclosure. And then there's, of course, the the Cursus monument, which actually was under excavation at the time of the discovery of Dronehenge in 2018, and of course Newgrange monument itself. Now, if you're thinking, why would they separate, or what evidence would there be that they actually separated the landscape like that, and why would it be important? Well, again, a lot of this we can only speculate on. However, I want to draw your attention to a later survey that I did in the year 2020. In the early summer 2020, in the late spring and early summer of 2020, there was another drought. That was, you will probably all remember, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and a lot of people were locked down. We had everybody had a lockdown. However, I believe I was the only photographer / drone pilot in the area who actually was legally able to get to Newgrange Farm at the time to take images. So I was kind of very lucky in that regard. But I did find lots and lots of stuff during that. I'm going to show you the site if I can find the picture. Again, apologies. I hope this doesn't sound too disjointed. Barb Jordan is in the house. Hello, Barb. Good evening. Good afternoon to you. And I will try to catch up on some of the comments. Rex says, looks like a stadium with seating. That would be my speculation. That's what I've written about in my Dronehenge book and my Mythical Ireland book, that I think these were stadia, as it were. I'm just going to show you this image when I can open it. So again, 6 clicks. That, share screen, click, 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 click. And that one, show on stream. So this is the Site A field. And so there's the henge around Site A with its annex on the right. There's the mound in the middle. And if I zoom in on this, I just want to show you something here. So this brighter feature here is the Great Palisade running across the field there towards the east on this side. This image is upside down. South is up and north is down. But this is, in 2020, what that pill-shaped or Frankfurter-shaped impression or crop mark looked like behind the Great Palisade, as it were. So I hope you can see lots of detail there. Anyway, it wasn't all finished with, because there is a comprehensive report on the 2020 imagery, which I'm going to share with you now as a link. The drought imagery that I captured. And this was an extensive reconnaissance operation by myself. I surveyed every field at Newgrange Farm, which covers about a fifth to a quarter of the entire Bóinne complex. I surveyed vertically every field, which meant taking a series of click and moving, you're moving the drone over the landscape, click, 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 and then creating a very large image from the series of overlapping images. It was time-consuming work. I did not get paid anything to do it. I did it off my own bat. I did it in my spare time. It took hours to collect the imagery, and then it took many more hours to collate and process the imagery. The final upshot of that was this report on my website, which is a comprehensive overview of all the features found in 2020. Just when I thought it couldn't be possible for there to be anything else to be revealed, because at that point you're saying to yourself, that has to be pretty much everything, surely. Let me just find this now. And I can't remember what year it was. I think it might have been 2021 or 2022. It was one or the other. Find out now. April of 2022. Yeah. So last year, I made a further discovery, which was what looked like a double gateway in the Great Palisade. So I'm going to show you another image here. Click, 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 click. Loading, click. So I hope you can see that. This is on my blog. I'll share that link with you. Hope you can see that. So the Great Palisade double fence is here. You may just be able to make out the individual dots or pits, what are probably post holes running up towards it on this side, and this double square feature that I think, and it's just speculation, holding my hands up to that before anybody jumps down my throat and says you're claiming things that aren't there. I'm suggesting that what it might be is a guarded gateway to get past the Great Palisade. So there's one of the 2020 images in which the gateway was only just, I don't know if I can, it's a low res image, but you could only just about, make out part of that, but it only became obvious in 2022. And I speculated that it may look like the Great Lawrence Gate in Drogheda, here in my home city, which is the old Norman era, one of the Norman era gateways into the town of Barbican, when Drogheda was a walled town back 800 years ago. So, Barb Jordan is in the house. Don't worry about coming in late. That's perfectly okay. Joseph Campbell is in the house telling me to follow my bliss, which I absolutely will. Thank you very much, Joseph Campbell. And just checking for comments or questions that I missed. Of course, one of the things that we want... So, by this time, 5 years ago, it's 9:10. I probably would have exhausted the next battery and would have landed. We had some interesting interaction with a couple of local people at the side of the road before we finally took the decision to come back here, because Ken lives in Wicklow and we thought it would be convenient to come back here and have a look at some of the images on the large computer monitor, because what we'd seen previously, remember, was on the screen of the phone. So we came back here and we looked at the images and were absolutely gobsmacked. Dronehenge, of course, was the big find at that time. We did not know until later the extent and nature of the Great Palisade. We did not know until later that the Four Poster was the largest of such monument ever discovered on the island of Ireland. Ken, in the following day or two, discovered one of the riverside henges. So we didn't know a lot of this at the time. But what we did do is we had a discussion about, well, what do we do with this? What's the proper way to go about this? And that is to report your finds to the National Monument Service. And of course, that's what I would do. And I have done. I've found a lot of monuments over the last few years, over the last 5 or 6 years, some of them on Google Earth, some of them on Apple Maps, some of them using my drone. And I would send an email to the person who looks after that particular county in the National Monument Service, and they would come back and say, yeah, that's something that's not recorded and we'll add it, or they'd say, no, that's not, we don't think that's archaeology. In the case of Dronehenge, we took the decision that, given that people are flying drones at Bóinne regularly, and somebody else could come along and fly over it, the next morning, we took the decision to share the images on social media. And I have absolutely no regrets about doing that. I come from a journalism background. In the newspaper game, when I was a young cub reporter 30 years ago, one of my mentors was the late Jim McCullen, who's the deputy editor of the Drogheda Independent. And Jim would say, never sit on a story. Why? Because it will blow up in your face. If you have a good story, some of the detail, you've heard something, and it's going to be a major splash. And if for some reason you decide, I need to sit on that because I don't have enough of the details and I need to find out more and blah, blah, blah. The difficulty is that one of your rival papers will get wind of it, and you'll open their paper and find, or you'll buy their paper and find it splashed all over the front of their paper. So the mantra is, if you have a good story, don't sit on it. So we decided not to sit on it. We decided what we would do was share I would share, I think it was 3, it may have been more, I'll find out shortly, of the images on social media. It was Facebook, actually. It was the Mythical Ireland Facebook page. And it wasn't, I know I later described it in the Dronehenge book as hardly the most what would you call it? I'll maybe read it. Perhaps not the most eloquent paragraph of prose you will ever read, but I think it captures the huge excitement and considerable anticipation of what might follow this extraordinary evening of discovery. Let me just find, I should be able to share with you an image or a screenshot of that original post, which ended up going viral. No, it was actually 5 images. It wasn't 3, it was 5. Give me 1 second, because I'm just trying to find the original post here. I know I have a screenshot of it. Yeah, here we go. Open with. Oh, you can just imagine the excitement. I came home here. I mean, even after we landed, even while we were still flying the drones, I describe how I was shaking with excitement. I was quite trembling, actually. It was very, 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 very exciting time. 6 clicks again, and here we go. So there's the original post from the 10th of July 2018 on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page, and I will read what it says to you if you can't read it. And you'll see there, at the time I made that screenshot, it had 6.5 thousand reactions and over 5,000 shares. New monuments discovered tonight near Newgrange! Exclamation mark. I'm shaking with excitement as I write this. Myself and Ken Williams of Shadows on Stone imaged some very substantial and previously unrecorded features in the fields near Newgrange this evening. They look like giant henges or enclosures, very similar in scale to Site P, and forming a row of 3 with P. What we didn't know at the time was the third one was actually LP2, had already been recorded. We didn't make that connection on the evening in question. Have a look at these very exciting photographs. If these turn out to be substantial discoveries, then I would be nothing short of utterly elated, chuffed, and excited. It's like I gobbled up the thesaurus that evening and put out as many superlatives as possible. We're already discussing them with an archaeologist, and to say he's very excited is a huge understatement. Of course, that archaeologist on the night in question was Dr. Steve Davis. I also sent an image or 2 of the henge. I rang Geraldine Stout, who's a good friend, and she's an archaeologist who had written a paper years previously on the embanked henges of the Bóinne region. And I told her I had discovered a henge, and she said, yeah, go on, And, the rest is to say is history. I just wonder whether I'm going to certainly can read it if I can find it. I said to her, Geraldine, do you have an email address that I could send you images on? And she said, yeah. And she gave me her email address. See, because I had her work email address, but I knew she wasn't at work because it was probably 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night. So I said, have you got an email address that you can access right now? And I'll send you a photo or photos. So I sent her photos. And her reply was the longest version of the word wow that you could possibly imagine. And I'm going to paste it in from the original email into the comments. And there you go. Changed your life, says Kelly. Yeah, absolutely it did. And it still does. So an important part of tonight's discussion, thank you, Patricia. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a pleasure. It's my honor. It's truly an honor and a privilege to have been able to do that. I bet it truly blew your mind to see it on the big screen, because we could see detail on the big screen that we hadn't seen on the small screen. And yes, it blew us away. Absolutely, it did. So one of the important discussions this evening is about, well, we're 5 years on. What do we know? And actually, the honest answer to that is little more than we knew at the end of 2018. We have, as I said, in the interim, at the end of 2018, we had the National Monuments interim report. In 2021, we had the paper published by Steve Davis and Knut Rassmann, which was published, by the way, in the Proceedings of the Prehistoric Society 2021, published by Cambridge University Press. So what we do know, I think, what can we say for certain? What can we say a little tentatively? And what can we only speculate? What we can say for certain is that these are crop marks of subsurface features. What we can say with a high degree of certainty is that they appear to be archaeological man-made features of an unknown but likely prehistoric date, and specifically we're probably looking at a series of late Neolithic features. What's the date range on those? Well, until we actually dig and find datable material in those fosses and trenches and pits, we can only say with a broad stroke, and that broad stroke would begin around 2900 BC and end around 25 to 2400 BC. So we're talking several centuries after the construction of Newgrange, which is built, we think, around 3200 BC. We know that, like other henges, there's no such thing really as a typical henge. Stonehenge, from which the word henge comes, from its hanging stones, the word hanging, hang, becoming henge, is actually an atypical henge. What is the archaeological description of a henge? A roughly circular area enclosed, often by a bank with an inner ditch. That's it. So there is no such thing, it seems, really, ultimately, as the perfect henge upon which you would judge all others. And it's clear that if these are henges, so if LP2 is a henge, Dronehenge is a henge, and the hidden henge, for instance, and the riverside henges, they're all different. They share commonality, they share similar sizes, they share similar designs. They're made from different materials, and sometimes there are quirks, like the porch, the rectangular structure on the end, on the northwestern end of Dronehenge, which I will share with you. The porch, as it's called, or what Steve Davis likes to call the ticket office. How you bought your tickets to get inside the henge to view whatever might have been going on in the middle of it. This feature here, this strange rectangular addendum addition opposite the what did we call that? The annex, you know, the eyeball, as it were, the pupil of the eyeball. Yeah, fascinating stuff. What can we only speculate about? We can only speculate about what these were used for. It looks like, and again, all of this comes with a caveat. It looks like they were large gathering areas. We have a tradition in Irish mythological tracts of sites called Aonach sites, Oenach, sometimes spelled Aonach. I'll put that in the comments, Aonach or Aonach, meaning approximately assembly sites. Most famous of those would be the assembly of Tailteann or Teltown in the county of Meath, Aonach Carman. But one of the assemblies that's mentioned in the mythological tracts but has never been drawn attention to by archaeologists is Aonach and Broga, which I believe is the cognate of Sheed and Broga, the monument of Newgrange. Is basically the assembly site associated with Newgrange, which would be the monuments that we're looking at. Bit of speculation there. What is not speculation is the fact that by and large these monuments respect each other's borders. So if we look at, I want to show you a national monuments image. The National Monuments report is brilliant from many points of view. A very comprehensive overview of everything that was found at that time. One of the things it's brilliant for is the fact that they've outlined so carefully all of the features on the aerial images, and it's so helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks, and one more click to show you this. So this is from the National Monuments Report. And you'll see here that even though in the Dronehenge field we appear to have 3 henges that are fairly tightly packed, you will see that there is no monument that overlaps another. Now, there are more features here. There's a possible henge in here, by the way, that I brought attention to in my 2020 imagery. There's another feature up here to the west of Newgrange, which is another 4-poster. There are more monuments here. Nothing seems to have been built on top of another, leading some archaeologists to suggest that these were monuments that were all standing at the same time. The impermanent monuments are interesting because it would appear from the timber 4-poster monument at Nouth, the one that was found during the excavations there that was reconstructed. The timber over recent years was rotting away and has just been replaced. So if you take it that the timber, untreated timber, which we're assuming was oak, we don't know that for sure. We won't know that until there's some archaeological dig. That these monuments, when standing, the timber posts certainly only had a lifespan of about 20 years. So if you think about it, the Great Palisade, a rough calculation suggests that there's 4,000 posts in that. There's another several hundred in Dronehenge. There's another probably several hundred in the hidden henge. There's probably 150, maybe more, in the 4-poster. That's an enormous task. It's an enormous task. What it suggests is, if, and again, educated speculation here, not at all fact, not anything that can be proven yet, is that if these were all standing at the same time, then we are looking at a truly enormous construction project, which undoubtedly would have required a lot of people. I have speculated in my own written work that that number must be around the 5,000 mark, perhaps as many as 10,000, which would have been a significant portion of the population of Ireland at the time. How do you bring people to one place to get them to do this stuff? How do you communicate that out in a time long before modern telecommunications and mass communication? How do you bring people to a place? The mythology suggests that there was an Enoch at Bóinne, sometimes referred to as Enoch and Broga, sometimes referred to as Enoch Engusa. Unlike Teltown, where the Enoch continued until the 1800s, believe it or not, almost unbroken in different forms, the Enoch of Bóinne seems to have disappeared from the face of the planet sometime probably in the early Bronze Age, and all traces of it, which is perhaps why there has been no... Hello, Coda. Yes. We're very excited that you're very excited to be with us. This is a monumental landscape that probably dates to the late Neolithic. We don't know that for sure. Again, educated speculation. The Enoch of Bóinne mentioned in the Middle Ages at a time when, mentioned in writing in the Middle Ages, at a time when it had, apart from the henges, the embanked henges, which would have been visible, at a time when it had vanished and was a shadow, a phantom of the past. Unlike Teltown, as I say, where the Enoch of Tulche was still going in the Middle Ages, and had been going for many centuries, it seems, possibly all the way back into the Neolithic. It also mentions, if you look at Tuchmark Etain, when Midger comes to see Angus, having brought Etain back, having come to Bóinne after he had won over Etain, or won Etain, as it were. He comes at Samhain and the boys are playing in the playing fields. That's a specific reference in Tuchmark Etain. That's when he gets his eye injured because somebody threw a spear of holly wood at him in one of the henges, it seems. Clichemai, the Irish word in the mythology, which seems to be the Irish word for a henge. Clichemai, the games field, or the playing field. Midger was healed, and sorry, that was before, yeah. He got his eye knocked out, and Etain was given to him as compensation. He came back a year later, again at Samhain, and again the boys are playing in the playing fields. In the same myth, Alkmaar is described as being standing on Sheed and Broga, watching the boys are playing the playing fields. And if you look at the view, you'll find that Newgrange has a fantastic view from the top of the ridge looking down over all the henges. That's my speculation. educated, informed speculation, whatever you might call it. It is necessarily speculative, because a lot of the questions around the late Neolithic complex of Bóinne are questions that will not be answered definitively, and may never actually be answered definitively, but certainly to any extent definitively until there is at least some excavation. Kathy May is going back to work after lunch. Thanks for joining us, Kathy May. Don't forget to watch the rerun if you missed any of it. Joe Butler is in the house. Auntie Joe, I hadn't said hello to earlier. Michael Trott arrived late. This sounds informative. Many posts. Yes, indeed. A huge amount of construction at Bóinne in prehistory, apparently. I have to sort of add a caveat to a lot of what I say. That went unnoticed by modern archaeology, partly because there hadn't been any comprehensive geophysical survey of the fields involved before the 2018 crop mark discoveries. Actually, mostly that's the reason, and partly because of the dearth or lack of excavation. You know, how large do they estimate the gathering might have been at these gatherings? Well, I know there was an estimate shortly after Dronehenge was discovered. Somebody made an estimate as to how many people you could fit inside Dronehenge, and it was something like 10,000. But don't quote me on that. That may be in my Dronehenge book. By the way, there is a book all about the discovery, the lead up to it, the night of discovery, the reaction to the discovery, the media coverage, and then the second half of this book is my own unpicking of, well, what is Dronehenge? What might it have been used for? Looking for those mentions in mythology and looking to speculate about what it might have been used for. I think, personally, Dronehenge and the other henges were, as they are described, the Enoch sites in the surviving tracts. They were assembly sites where a number of things happened, where, for instance, you had political speeches and overtures. You had, the king making some sort of a big speech, where you had horse racing, where you had warrior contests. Now, horse racing is a controversial one. When were horses introduced to Ireland? That's a question. But warrior contests, fighting, sports, music, poetry, especially poetry, because the bard, of course, seems to have an important role in later times. Why not in earlier times too? Again, a lot of this speculative. When we as humans gather in large arenas in modern times, what are we gathering for? And I know you might say there's a big difference between modern times and the Neolithic, but I'm constantly reminded of the fact that as humans, we actually don't change that much, and we haven't changed that much over time. So what might we be doing if we are crowding into an arena and paying tickets? We're probably watching a sports game. We might be watching, in America, if you're in America, you might be watching American football or baseball. In Ireland, you're in Croke Park watching Gaelic football or hurling. In Britain, you're watching big soccer matches in Wembley Stadium. But you're also going to stadia for rock concerts, big musical performances, sometimes for the likes of, not necessarily modern sports arenas, but you're going to big theatrical settings for theatre and plays. There's a whole load of things that you could be doing if you're going to an arena. It seems unlikely that they were built for purely solemn purposes, and they look, in terms of scale, like the sort of places where large gatherings were facilitated. And of course, Dronehenge, being very close to the Bóinne River, would have facilitated a large arrival of people by boat, which is the main way in and out of Bóinne in the Neolithic. The sea and the river were the motorway, the highways of the day. I'm going to see if there's any questions. There's probably a lot of stuff here. So, before I go to the comments and questions, the thing to say is, we don't know a lot more now than we did in the year of discovery. Apart from the National Monuments publication and the Davis and Rousman paper, there hasn't been much apart from what I have written in my expanded Mythical Ireland volume in Dronehenge and on my website, which I think is still a considerable body of work, actually. I suppose the next big step would be a complete geophysical survey using all the techniques available, which would include, we have LiDAR, but perhaps the LiDAR that we have for Bóinne, I believe, is quite old, and I believe that new LiDAR would have better resolution. So no harm to do more LiDAR. I don't think it'll show much. All the usual magnetometry and all of that, gradiometry, but and resistivity and all that, but the ground penetrating radar as well. Obviously, from my point of view, one of the things that I would like to do on an ongoing basis is to keep flying the drone over Bóinne and watching out for features, because they're not always visible after droughts. In March of 2019, Dronehenge reappeared in a crop of spring barley, winter barley. So it appeared at a time when there didn't seem to be any drought. So features can appear at times when they're not expected. Kerem Gogus is in the house. Hello, Kerem. And of course, don't forget that Kerem, yes, we should share that. Absolutely. What a timely arrival on Kerem's part. We should share some of Kerem's images. Kerem is a 3D artist who recreated what Dronehenge might have looked like at the time it was built. Let me show you some of those. Yeah, so just to say that I don't think there'll be any considerable movement in what we understand about Dronehenge and those other features until such time as there is some excavation. That doesn't have to be large-scale excavation. So here we go. There's one of Kerem's images of Dronehenge, what it might have looked like back in the day. Let me just see if there should be a few more in here. And that is similar to one of the ones that ended up being used on the cover of the Dronehenge book. So the Dronehenge book features part of one of Kerem's reconstructions of Dronehenge against a red sky photograph that I believe is one of mine. Yes, absolutely. I don't usually borrow photographs from my book covers. And you'll see there's a plan of Dronehenge overlaying on top of that. Anyway, a couple more of those images maybe. If Kerem doesn't mind, I'm sure he won't. We'll give him a good plug. If you've got any 3D projects that you'd like done, consider employing him. Here's a few more images of Dronehenge as myself and Kerem. Well, Kerem did all the work. I just guided him as to what we might be looking at in terms of upright posts, and then in terms of the crossbars, as it were, the hanging posts that made it a henge, like the hanging stones of Stonehenge. Just showing you. Oh, that's an actual aerial photograph, one of my own, of part of the henge. And there's what it might have looked like when it was being constructed. And that's definitely a curbstone at Newgrange. Okay, I think we're. Let's have a look in that folder, see if there's anything that I didn't share that might be worth sharing. No, I think we've shown most of it. So there you go. One of the upshots, T./Nash. Goodness, catching up on 1 3/4 speed. Definitely feeling the excitement. Yeah. Where do we go from here? Well, one of the things that's happening is that, shameless plug coming up, is that recently I've begun, thanks to the very, very generous cooperation of Newgrange Farm, where most of these features that we've been talking about tonight are located. I've been leading guided tours of Newgrange Farm, speaking about the monuments that are there, the ones that have been known previously, the mounds, the henges, the standing stones, and of course the discoveries of 2018 and 2020 and later. Trying to build a picture for visitors as to where they're situated in the landscape, to show them the actual fields where these monuments are located, to tell them some of the stories associated with the place, to try to build a greater picture from the mythology, which is something that a lot of archaeologists wouldn't consider. That's fair enough, because that's, they would not consider mythology to be evidence. My argument has been over the years that I think that there's enough in mythology connected with Bóinne in relation to the function of monuments, and indeed referencing monuments that aren't there anymore, to suggest, like the Enoch of Bóinne, to suggest that these myths do go all the way back. Anyway, I'm going to take some questions and comments. The Bóinne was exactly where it is today, Barbara, believe it or not. There isn't much evidence. The Bóinne probably reached its current form within probably a millennia or so after the end of the Ice Age. There is some discussion about the possible presence of what archaeologists call paleo channels. Paleo. I don't know whether you say paleo or paleo. I say paleo. They say paleo. Paleo channels, which may have run through the landscape. There are one or two of those. To be honest, I think they're probably very early in date. I think they're from a time before the monuments, because if you look at where they're positioned, they're actually positioned where it would be impossible to build those monuments if they existed at the time. What day of the year would it possibly align with? A very good question, and the answer is explored. And I say explored, the possible answer is explored. All of this comes with a caveat. Anybody who tells you, I got into trouble for saying this before, we're going to say it again. Anybody who tells you this is the exact meaning of the megalithic art, and says it with certainty, be careful of them. They can't know for certain. You can put forward very good theories, but not know. I'm putting forward theories. I don't know whether I'm right about this stuff or not. Just looking for the article that deals with a preliminary investigation of its possible alignment, which is discussed in more detail in my Dronehenge book. And again, if you want to buy a copy on the Mythical Ireland website, I will send you a signed copy. So that's a very good question. We're looking in the wrong direction there, I think. I think we should be looking in the opposite direction. Samhain sunrise, the beginning of winter, when the mythology tells us there was a gathering involving boys at play in the playing fields at Bóinne. Samhain and Samhain and in bulk. Pardon me. If you were to go back in Dronehenge's heyday, which of the games would you participate? I'm not sure that I would participate in any. I'm a bit of a chicken, to be honest. I'm a bit of a coward. I think they would have been very physical games. You only have to look at modern GAA. Now, I'm not saying modern GAA is Gaelic games are a survival of Neolithic games. I'm not. But I'm just saying they can be quite physical and at times brutal and even violent. I wonder whether there's a henge in Pommelte in Germany where, when they excavated the trenches or the foss, the ditches, they found human bones that looked like they had suffered violent deaths, leading them to speculate that at least some of what had taken place in the interior of that henge had involved violence. I suspect there might have been a gladiatorial aspect to some, Wrong. There is no exact answer. They didn't leave written records, and there was no one left to ask, only the myths and legends. That's it, Lexi, exactly. Everything that you say about your interpretation of megalithic art and your interpretation or your speculation around what might have been involved in, who might have been involved, how many might have been involved, what these looked like, what took place in them, what people ate at the time, that's all speculation. Now, it may be educated speculation, but it comes with that caveat. Nobody can say with certainty. Maybe bullfighting rings. That is not beyond the realms of possibility when you consider the amount of, well, cattle raiding mythology, first of all, but when you consider that the culmination of Toynbee Bóinne is a fight between the two great bulls, not beyond the realms of possibility. Modern day version of the sport could be Aussie rules. Yeah, it's quite violent, isn't it? Patricia is saying to create these amazing ancient circles, there must have been a large human presence. That's the one thing I'm saying that I'm less speculative about. It is clear, I think, quite clear, but not definitively clear, that a large amount of people built those. Has any research found human remains? No, that's the problem. No excavation of any of those henges or late Neolithic features in front of Newgrange. Bar the Cursus, which was under excavation by the Stouts in 2018 and which had a late Neolithic date, and the henge at Monk Newtown, excavated in the 1970s, which was found to have a Middle Bronze Age date, but it did have Neolithic flints and perhaps a bit of pottery in it. Strange one. Where should the next excavations take place? Well, given that Newgrange Farm is a working farm and is constantly either under tillage or in pasture, that is always going to be down to what is least disruptive to that. If you were asking me, what would I like to see? I'd like to see a very, very small scale, limited excavation of several of the features of Dronehenge, a small trench over the ticket office, a small trench over one of those double ditch sections, a small trench over the annex, maybe those three. Very limited excavation, so as not to cause huge damage or disruption. Might help, Is there any evidence that the henge was maybe somewhere else before it moved to its current position? Well, henge is not the sort of thing you could move, Brendan, really, because remember that what we think we're most likely looking at are trenches, pits, and ditches dug into the ground. But it's a good question from the point of view that if you look at the hidden henge and you look at Dronehenge and you look at Site P, there does appear to be indications of some sort of progression. Were they planning the permanent version, Site P, the embanked stone version, stone and clay version, by creating impermanent timber versions? Again, speculating. It's enjoyable to imagine. Yes, the test pits suggest spike willow. Yeah, exactly. Marcus is saying it's enjoyable to imagine. Yes. The most important things was that the tribes continue and there was food. That's another challenge of bringing an immense amount of people into the bend of the Bóinne in prehistory. How do they all get fed? I'm thinking celebrations like Luna said, Thanksgiving for a good feast, games of celebrations. Yeah, except for, I mean, it's still highly plausible and not implausible. It's just that this very minor indications, very brief, not minor, but the brief indications of mythology seem to suggest Samhain at the end of the harvest, which is unusual because a lot of the Enoch sites would have been Lunasa sites. No metal detector work, no. And again, we're dealing with what we think is a largely Neolithic landscape, so we wouldn't expect to find much metal. They've found plenty of flint and stone objects, and I talk about that, and indeed I talked about the incredible amount of material that had been picked up in field walking surveys, the lithic scatter of the Dronehenge field. And the expert in this area, the foremost expert, as far as I'm aware, and I know him very well, is Conor Brady of Dundalk Institute of Technology, who can pick up any sample of flint and objects made in the Stone Age and tell you what they are, how they were made, and describe them in details. Quite incredible. He's forensic. He's brilliant, Hot dogs, says Irish Cycle Thinker. Well, I suppose one of the things they think is at Durrington Walls is that they brought their pigs. There's evidence from prehistory, not just in Ireland, but in Britain, of pig feasting, that pigs were the sort of animal where if you were having large gatherings, that would be easier to transport on your boat, probably, and then would make a very enjoyable several meals after being slaughtered. There was much more salmon running in that river, correct, says Saibi, 20 times more than now, or more, I think more than that, actually, yeah. That would help feed them. And don't forget, the major salmon run of the year begins at Samhain, and they spawn in the upper reaches of the river at midwinter. Amazing stuff. I understand these circles are deep in the earth, yet farmers are tilling the lands for centuries. How deep do you need to excavate? They're not that deep. Well, you see, so the ploughing only disrupts the top 7 to 9 inches of soil. So what's that in centimeters? Is that 20 to 25 centimeters of soil? So what we're looking at are beneath that. But how far down do they extend? Well, I suppose, again, you could only speculate. The post holes, it depends on what size, what height the posts were. They're probably 1 meter to 1.5 meters deep. They may even be deeper. They may be 2 meters deep, which would be what? 7 feet. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question, but again, only excavation will tell us that for sure. But why do you think it was only used at one time a year and for one reason? I'm not sure that it was for one reason. I think it might have been part of a harvest celebration, an end of harvest celebration. I couldn't say for sure. There's nothing that we don't have any archaeological evidence that would say it couldn't have been used throughout the year. However, you are talking about the gathering of a serious amount of people. I think minimum 1,000, probably more like 5,000, possibly as many as 10,000. That population is not really sustainable all year round, I don't think, in that small area. I think they're coming in and out for a seasonal or once a year celebrations. But look, can I prove that? Absolutely not. What is that based on? Educated speculation. No immediate plans for geophysics that I know of, Samantha. That's the simple answer there, I'm afraid to say. So a huge hog at the Irish National Heritage Park in Wexford. They were using it to cut the grass. Have you ever seen a hog taking a pee? We were at Dublin Zoo 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a huge pig there taking a pee, and it took 3 or 4 minutes, and he filled a little lake while he was there doing it. But if you have a harvest festival, I would expect a planting festival. I suspect that there were festivities in different parts of the calendar. Yes. Can't say that there weren't. I'm leaning towards the Samhain thing because of the brief mentions in mythology. They would have taken a long time to build a henge, so maybe not. Yeah, but you see, so what we're forgetting here, Spike, don't forget, is the timber versions. Like what I said a while back, that the timbers have a lifespan of 20 years. Once you cut down the tree and you use part of that tree as a post, it's got a lifespan of about 20 years. So your monument, if it's constructed with a huge amount of timber in it, like we think Dronehenge was, and like we think the Great Palisade were, it's going to have to be built in that time frame, and probably in a lot shorter time frame, and then maybe replenished as time went on. Early Olympics, says Lexi. Well, the Teltown Games, the Taillte Éineach, has been described as Ireland's Olympic Games. And the claim is that it goes much further back than the Greek Olympic Games, because there are enclosures there which may well turn out upon excavation at some future time at Teltown, that is, to be late Neolithic in date. To keep soldiers in shape during peacetime. Pigs are cute, though, says Marcus. There was a time not that long ago in Irish history when many households kept a pig. Where was the bar, says he. Are you talking about the bar, or the bar as in, over the bar for a point, under the bar for a goal? Never mind. Yes. Just trying to see, catch up. I think I missed a lot of comments, or did I? We'll see. No, I think I've covered a lot of it. Yeah, again, Patricia is asking about any human remains. No, because, again, complete lack of excavation of any of these features. So no is the quick answer. No human remains. And again, that is the value of doing some digging in the future, you know. Just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss saying hello to anybody. First of all, that maybe joined us. Maureen Joyce, I'm not sure if I'd said hello to you earlier, is here. Maureen, if I didn't say hello, fault you at the end of the night. Oh my God, it's 10 to 10. Oh, Jeannie Mackers. Elaine enjoyed this immensely, even though he's still talking after nearly 2 hours. Okay, I think I've caught up largely. Is there any path from Dronehenge to the River Bóinne? Brilliant question, Lexi. And just before we finish, allow me to show you another image from the Dronehenge field, highlighted in the National Monument Service report of December 2018, and re-highlighted by me in my Dronehenge book as a possible gateway to the whole complex from the river. Let me just quickly find this. It's a feature in the very southeastern corner of the Dronehenge field, right next to the river. That looks, and again, take this with a pinch of salt, or if you prefer, a whole bucket of salt. Just trying to find it now. Where are you, you bugger? Here we go. Let me just share this again. Apologies for the 6 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is in answer to Lexi's question. The double dumbbell feature, as it was called. I think what we're looking at here, sorry, I was messing with the wrong screen there. I think what we're looking at here is a gateway. So the river is beneath the image here. This is the riparian margin, as it's called, the trees between the modern fields and the river. I think we're looking at a gateway, a double sort of fenced gateway opening feature leading into the complex, so that the idea would be that you parked your boats along the northern shore of the river, which is here, and you come in through this feature, which is quite a little bit difficult to see there, and that's how you made your ingress, your entry. So there's an image of the same thing. Here's the double dumbbell, as they call it. So, you know, I speculate, have done, again, speculation is all it is, that this may have been an entrance into the entire complex. Great question, Lexi. Fabulous question. Just checking that I haven't missed any others. Yeah, the cheese wheel race in England. I see that. Yeah, wasn't the winner this year a woman who broke something? She broke her arm or something in the fall and still managed to win, or did she break her collarbone or a rib or something? Nice to hear you mention the grooveware culture earlier. Yeah, the grooveware. There's a direct association there with the four-poster at Nouth, because grooveware was found in the pits of that circle. Henge away. Good prehistory speculation, though. Sports play and bards. I think it's exciting to speculate. So long as you don't come on to YouTube and say, listen, this is exactly what it was for. There can be no doubt. I think you'd be misleading people. Okay, I think we can think about wrapping it up. We will get back to Charles Squire next week, unless something else exciting comes along. Podcast number 16, Mythical Ireland podcast number 16, is in my head. At some point, I hope to transfer it by microphone onto the computer. That, like the previous podcasts, will be shared first with Mythical Ireland patrons. Don't forget that number 15, which is called Myths Retold or Myths Reawakened, is currently available to patrons at the Bronze Age level and above. Did I get that right, or did I get that wrong? I'll find out now before I go. and tell you just now in 1 second. Well, to be honest, when we say 1 second in Ireland, that can mean 5 minutes, you know. Just trying to think, what else did I share in the past couple of days? One was for the Stone Age level and above, and the other was for Bronze Age and above. Oh, yeah. So it's the Stone Age level, the podcast. So that's $5 a month or above. You get your podcasts first and foremost at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. Thanks, Adrian. I can't believe it's been 5 years. I really can't. It's incredible how time has flown. We've had a whole pandemic, imagine, between then and now. Unbelievable stuff. But anyway, as soon as there are any new developments, of course, we will keep you, or we will endeavour to keep you informed here at Mythical Ireland on the social media channels, on the website at mythicalireland.com. See you, Mariana. Thank you for joining us. Patricia Wardell saying buon notte. What language is that? Is that Italian or Spanish? Buona serata. Maybe it's neither. Pandemic times feel surreal now. They felt surreal then too, but the only thing is we were doing this every day, which was very enjoyable, a very great way of distracting ourselves from all of the worry of the time. A discovery for the ages. I know, it's amazing. Some days I still have to slap myself or pinch myself and say, did I really discover a late Neolithic henge and several other significant features of prehistory? Laura Puente. Thanks, Laura. Have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in. And Lexi also, yourself and Barbara, thank you. And as always, for the wonderful feedback and the fantastic questions. Great to see your photos and getting your thoughts on it all. So fascinating. Good night all. Be safe. Thanks, Adina. We'll see you again next week. If not, between now and then. Yes, Samantha, those 5 years certainly did absolutely fly around. Ikawa Akarja. That is Adrian saying goodbye to everyone. Good night and thank you for tuning in. And I'm going to get myself a glass of water. Don't forget that tomorrow is another day of Mythical Ireland working on the Fornox monograph. Cover to be shared for patrons at the Bronze Age level and above within a few minutes of me finishing this live stream. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Joe, Auntie Joe. All the very best to you also. Good afternoon to all our friends in Colorado and, of course, all over the United States and Canada and South America and all the other continents. All our friends in Britain and in Europe and in Asia and in the Far East. We had a viewer from Michael Trott is in New Zealand, and anybody who might be watching in Australia and hasn't said so or announced their presence. Anyway, it's 3 minutes past 10. We've been streaming for 2 hours. It's high time I shut up and let you all go about your day or your night. Ikawa Kulasov, Slán go fóill, and don't forget, most importantly, Tóga Bugé. Take it easy.